There's something about fishing that stirs up an energy and excitement from deep within us. It could come from landing a personal best fish or by helping someone land their first fish ever. It's stories shared around the dinner table, and after a day on the water, the goal of learning more about the wonders that surround us. To us, it's the things that give our lives purpose and meaning. These are the stories told by the avid, the dedicated, and the passionate. This is the Love of Fishing Podcast. The Love of Fishing Podcast is proudly powered by Peter's Tackle and sponsored by Freedom Tackle, Silver Salmon, Dreamweaver, Team Underdog Cutbait, and Grimsby Tackle. Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Love of Fishing Podcast, brought to you by Peter's Tackle. I'm your host, Lyle Gator, and this week we have another great show on our hands. This week we're sitting down and talking to James MacGregor from Advanced Taxidermy. James and his talented staff at Advanced have been pioneers in the replica fish mount industry. So this week we're going to talk about James's 40 years in business. We're going to talk about what taxidermy is and how Advanced does things a little bit different than the local guy that does taxidermy in your community. It's a great chance to learn about this beautiful art and science. I think you're going to like this episode. I'd like to say hi to everybody listening this week on Spotify. We did add that platform this year, so welcome to those. And those of you who are faithful and listening on YouTube, hello as well, and thank you for joining another edition of the show. Before we get into our discussion with James, there's a few people that I should thank. Thank you very much to our supporting sponsors who've made this season possible. Thank you to Freedom Tackle, to Silver Salmon, Team Underdog Cutbait, Grimsby Tackle, and Team Dreamweaver for your continued support of the podcast. Now, let's jump into our discussion with James MacGregor. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of the Love of Fishing Podcast. I'm your host, Lyle Gator, and today we're joined by James MacGregor of Advanced Taxidermy. Welcome, James.
Hey, Lyle, how are you doing today?
Very well, sir. It is great to have you on the show. I'll admit I have been going through your Facebook pictures of all the amazing work that you guys do. And for those that are listening that aren't, really too familiar with what taxidermy is, speaking with you, I hope today that we can learn about your craft, your story as far as, how you became involved in it, and maybe some of your favorite works that you've completed.
It's a pleasure and honor to be a part of this. Taxidermy is a pretty neat, occupation. It's been fun. Business partner Shawn Galea and myself here at Advanced Taxidermy, we're pushing 40 years in the business now. And we're a fully licensed taxidermy facility, big game, small game, life-size birds, mammals, reptiles, fish. And I'm proud to say that, he and I are two of the pioneers of the replica fish technology in the world. We've been molding and casting fish for almost the full 40 years. It's something that we've pioneered, and it seems to be the mainstream of fish taxidermy these days. Because as we all know, people love to release fish. And this way we can immortalize that catch.
That's fantastic. It's great for conservation, as you say. So, you're talking about a 40-year history. What have you seen change in the taxidermy game? Obviously, being a pioneer, what was your reasoning behind wanting to develop that?
Well, I guess the truth of the matter is a better looking, longer lasting mount. The conservation part of it is a big part of it, but it wasn't the main part of it. So as far as taxidermy itself, the word derives from, Greek words, taxi meaning position, dermy for dermis, which is skin. And simply enough, the fish was positioned over these styrofoam armatures, and with the excessive shrinkage involved and the fact that them being raw skins just dried, there's natural fish oils in that skin that would eventually, surface, causing paint to crack, fins to dry out further and split. Skin mount taxidermy was a very short-term thing. Although it was the actual skin of the fish that was caught, not really a benefit in any sort of perspective from my business partner, Shawn, from our views anyways, because it wasn't a great representation of the fish you caught. It was a real skin there, but it's the wrong shape, the wrong colors. There's no color retention with the skin mount. It's excessively dried. So it was literally the raisin compared to the grape. Now we started molding the heads and the fins off of actual fish using the skin bodies, and the heads and the fins looked fleshier and lasted longer than the bodies did, that we started molding whole fish. And the fact that, we can mold a fish, you can now, with the fact that we had a library, for lack of a better word, of molds of various species, you can let that fish go. Just take a length measurement, a girth measurement, and a picture for shape and color. And we could build a fish more accurate to the original fish than what the skin mount could ever be. And it kind of just sort of blossomed from there, because fishermen wanted, to let fish go. And, representation on their wall that could be handed down as a three-dimensional piece of wildlife art, immortalizing a joyous memory in their fishing career or time. And it could be literally be handed down through the generations. The young fella catches his first smallmouth, eventually could be grandfather handing it down to the grandson, and it's still looking the same.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's a really cool thing, to have that memory, like you say, immortalized and to be able to be passed down. The other thing I noticed, and I'm sure that you guys love doing this kind of thing, is some of your tables and the live pieces where you have either fish or wildlife like as a part of a piece of furniture. I think that stuff's so amazing.
Once again, and I would say a lot of that direction was my business partner, Shawn. Just my opinion, is one of the greatest creative minds in the art industry of, related to the fishing industry. Taking that fish off the wall, not only just having the fish on the wall, on a piece of driftwood or a panel, but doing full habitats and displays and sceneries for the wall, then bringing it off the wall and doing tabletop displays, and eventually pushing the envelope further, and with encasing them, making the cases usable furniture. And we do custom carpentry right here in our facility, so we can, make coffee tables and end tables and cabinets. Even we've made 10-man poker tables with a glass top with a fish, inside. So, if someone wants to go further than just a classic fish on a driftwood, which is still amazing, here at Advanced, there's no limitations to what the display can be.
Yeah, I'll put some pictures up to go with the podcast. But for those of you that haven't checked out Advanced, their work is just amazing. And these furniture pieces really are spectacular. What's one misconception that you would want to straighten out about taxidermy, maybe for the novice who doesn't really know about the industry or about what you guys do?
Well, I guess you can look at it from different perspectives. Unfortunately, here in North America, it's still looked up, I'll almost say down upon. And the fact that it's like a dark art, and the fact that, we're using animal parts and fish parts and bird parts, almost in, a way that it's not looked upon at a level like it is in Europe, where it's looked upon as more of like a science, American science and art. And they're, taxidermists in Europe and other places of the world are looked at as like scientists and doctors. Whereas here in North America, they're still sort of looked down upon. I think it's just got some, and a lot of ways, got to do with culture. Even today, you go out fishing and people will look at you going, you're not going to go, hurt a fish, are you? Which right. I just chuckle about, right? But yeah, it is definitely, if I was to put it in a nutshell, to be a taxidermist, to be a good taxidermist, you have to be a master. As that, that saying, a master of all trades,
jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, but it's opposite. You have to be a jack of all trades and a master of all of them. To be a good, because it involves the science behind it and the biology behind it. Knowing exactly what they're supposed to look like, It also involves, the structure part of it, sculpture and carving. And then, of course, the artistic part of it with not only display and design and composition, but knowing colors and knowing how to paint and knowing all that. I think that's where Shawn and I have a great advantage is, we came into the industry. Now, mind you, we were kids, literally. We started the business 16 years old, but we had a background and a history in not only the fishing, being avid fishermen, but in the arts. We were both very, very, a big part of the art world from our perspective. And it was just a perfect marriage in the fact that it's a science between art and biology. And yeah, he and I are both fish nerds, just like taking it to a degree and level that a lot of people don't even want to because it's just that far out. But, in all the work we do, you can see it on all of our social platforms, whether it be the website or Facebook or Instagram, right down to individual painted scales with iridescent shimmers in the work that we do. But, we're immortalizing these joyous memories. We've been there. We know what it takes physically, emotionally, and monetarily to catch these fish. That here at Advanced, we're not gonna buy a cheap glass eye. We're gonna buy the best materials, the best products, and work harder than any other studio to make it right.
For sure. Yeah. You mentioned, immortalizing everything that goes into that. And certainly anybody who spends a lot of time out on the water can recognize that when you do get that trophy catch, how much that means, if it's a muskie, let's say, fish at 10,000 casts. Well, to get a 50 plus, you're talking about many more thousands of casts. So there's a lot of work that goes into it from the angling side. You sort of answered one of my questions for you, which was, did you start with an art background or a fishing background? Sounds like you had both.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's pretty rare, I think. How did you meet your business partner?
Well, art class. There you go. we both, this is it seems like a fake story, but it's so funny. It's true. We went to high school, the same high school, and literally he sat across from me in art class, and of course it was in the fall, and the tributaries to the Great Lakes. There was a great run of Chinooks and Browns in the Humber River, which was close to the high school. So right after high school, after I first time meeting Shawn, I head down to the old mill on the Humber River and fish in the pools under the bridge. And who do I bump into? But the guy was just sitting across from me in art class. And it's like, hey, you're art class, right? It's like, yeah.
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah. That was it. That was the start of this, and 40 years later, I'm proud to say that, we've just moved into our newest facility. Really excited. The old facility was awesome, the largest taxidermy facility in all of Canada. But this new facility, I can proudly say is the largest taxidermy facility in North America. So, it's a great building that was designed from the floor up for our purpose. And, we're still in construction sort of part of it. We've taken occupancy to keep working, but it's pretty exciting. It's a pretty awesome building. And, once we get it fully open and operational, people can buy and take a look at our showroom just for something to do, to, be able to see animals and fish from all around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you think that being from Toronto and being from Ontario, I guess more broadly, how do you think that shaped sort of the way that you look at art and also at the fishing kingdom and the hunting kingdom?
Well, as far as Canada goes, Ontario is quite popular for both the fishing, and the hunting, especially being surrounded by the Great Lakes system. And even in Ontario, as we know, there's more lakes and freshwater lakes in Ontario than there is in the rest of Canada. And there's more freshwater lakes in Canada than there is in the rest of the world combined. So definitely fishing is a big part for Canadians, as well as my business partner and I. We were avid fishermen. Don't do much of it lately. We're just living vicariously through our customers. I think I've been known to try and Photoshop my face over some customers' pictures every once in a while for their fish, especially the good ones, if you know what I mean. But yeah, at least like I can enjoy that aspect. And people say that, hey, like you don't go fishing much anymore. Well, times are changing, and we're always seem to be losing more and more time, that's available to do that stuff. But I'm just, I'm getting my fix from being able to work on these wonderful, wonderful specimens, and being an international business. It's not just the local neighborhood stuff. We're seeing stuff from all around the world. A couple neat projects just of recent, because we not only do, and not to get too complex here, but with fish, just talking about fish, there's the old style conventional skin mounts. We don't even do that anymore. We have very, very, very little request for it, so it's just not feasible to do the old skin mounts, especially when we can do cast and molds off of clients' actual fish and just add to our library, which I think over 6,000 molds of fish now in the 40 years. And the reproductions being cast from actual fish, they're anatomically perfect, like we were talking about. And there's fleshiness in the base of the fins, and you can see all the scales, even growth rings in the scales and the detail of our molds. But we also do full recreations too. And to explain that, it's a little difficult, because you might look at it like a carving or a sculpture, and it's not really that as much as it is more of like something that we build to the same quality as the reproductions that are cast. But that's a lot of it's got to do with our experience and knowledge in the techniques of doing this and molding. But we can make pretty much any fish in the world for customers. And one of the projects we worked on just recently, which was really fun and neat, we did a 70-inch Timon for Johnny Morris, who's a very, very good client of ours. We do all of his personal work for fish. He's the owner of Bass Pro and Cabela's, and we do work for his son JP. But he had the chance to head out to Asia and fish some of the rivers, and I'm not sure if it was a fly fish or not, but he caught this wonderful Timon. And there's absolutely zero. There are no Timon molds in the world by anyone. So he gave us a call and said, "I need this recreated." And Johnny, just the typical way Johnny is, doesn't want one, he wants two. So we made, two of these Timon, right down to individual scales and iridescent painted scale by scale. And they turned out just amazing, if I can say that confidently, not so much big-headedly. But if a client catches a fish and we don't have a mold of it, well, there is plan B. There's always a plan B, but we can do creations. And we've also had the pleasure of working on some very large recreations. Like, for example, once again for Bass Pro, their Boston store in Foxborough, Massachusetts, we actually built an actual size humpback whale, 50 feet long, 10-foot belly to back, 47 feet across the fins, which is the largest project, I guess you could say, that we've worked on. But again, right down to, scarring and acorn barnacles and all the natural wrinkles. And you can go down there and walk underneath of it. It was so big, the fire department had to require that it be plumbed. So there was a sprinkler system underneath the whale, so that if there was ever a fire in that store, there wouldn't be a big area that would be sort of shielded from, the sprinkler system. But yeah, we've had the pleasure of working on some pretty neat stuff. And not only in the fish world, but even in the mammal world, that, here's a quick neat example. I've worked on two animals that no other taxidermists have worked on in North America, in the history of North America. We did an adder's diker and a Bira antelope for one of our best clients, Jim Shockey, who's a very well-known hunter. And he has a museum out in BC called the Hand of Man Museum. And he was lucky enough to be able to hunt an adder's diker and bring it back into Canada. And like I said, it's the only adder's diker to be in North America ever. The Smithsonian doesn't even have one. So it's a pretty neat thing to have in our resume.
Wow. I can't even imagine how special that is that you guys got to do that. And going back to that whale, I'm just trying to imagine how big it is. And, for you to have the confidence in your team to be able to take on a project like that, I think really speaks to what you guys do. Because it's it's not every day that you get that request, but I'm sure it's not every taxidermist that could fill it either. So tell me a little bit about your team. How many are in your shop?
Well, it does vary depending on seasons and different things that we're doing. Right now, I think we have the best team we've ever had in the 40 years that we've been, in business. And Advanced Taxidermy has always been a team. Like, even from day one, it's been Shawn Galea and James MacGregor. And just as we got bigger, we've hired on more people. Some of our guys have been working with us for like 25 years, maybe even longer, if I was to, do the math. But and it's smart business to have people specialize in different aspects of the procedures. Having a guy that just specializes in the mold making and the fabricating, and another person in the prep work. Every single step is the most important step. But still, when it comes down to it, I'm proud to say that my business partner and I have our hands in every single part of it. And all the painting is done by him or I. Even to this day, it's just him or my paint jobs on the fish, talking about the fish. So it keeps the integrity of the art and the integrity of who Advanced Taxidermy is as well.
It's amazing. What's your favorite piece that you've ever worked on? If you can name one, I'm sure there's lots that you've loved. You probably love all of them, but what's one that stands out?
You've hit the nail right on the head. There's so many different projects. And if you asked me that question and said, you can only pick one, 5 days in a row, I give you 5 different answers because of how I was feeling that day.
Right.
But some neat stuff, working on big projects, like, the pod of orcas that we did in the Cabela store in Reno, chasing salmon, a school of like 60 salmon, the humpback whale in the Boston store in the Bass Pro Shops. Working on the Adder's Diker for the Hand of Man Museum in Jim Shockey's museum in BC, to put it bluntly, working on brown trout, 8-year-old Timmy caught his first fish with his grandpa, because, that story's there,
Yeah.
So that's all a part of it. And that's one of the reasons why we're as passionate as we are about what we do. And again, we work so hard to make sure it's right because we as people have been there as well. A business partner's son caught his, first big salmon out in Lake Ontario. Guess what little Chase got for Christmas? Right. It's just, it's who we are, it's what we do. And, it's been an absolute, if I was to say tomorrow I was retiring, I'd have the biggest smile on my face that I've been lucky enough to have, the people that have supported us, the customers that we've had over these years, best customers in the world. In a nutshell, our quality and our dedication to the art has brought us the biggest names in the outdoor world as customers. And we take pride about that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. James, it's been wonderful to have you on the show. I think that the passion and the energy is fantastic. And it's something that I really have tried to select people to speak on the show that have that. And it's just been amazing to talk to you. I'll link below in the video where people can get in contact with you guys if they want to get a replica, or maybe if they catch a Timon, because you guys can do it. So I'll link that down below, but it's just been fantastic to talk to you.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you as well. And hopefully we can do this again. I think there's a lot more that we can discuss.
Absolutely. Thanks, James.
Have a great day.
I'd like to give a big thanks to James MacGregor and his whole team at Advanced. They've been really wonderful with organizing this and being able to make it possible. So thanks to Brittany, who's one of the office staff members. James, of course, for jumping on the podcast. Just great to talk to these guys. And I think having James on, he's sort of the quintessential guest that I hope to have out on this show. Always looking for interesting people to have on. And really just the combination of that passion for fishing and also an art form. Being an artist, I think that's really cool. And I'm really just stoked that he could tell his story on the show. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it's great to talk to a variety of people here. I like to share the voices of all these folks. And I hope that you find these types of guests interesting too. It's a good segue right now. We'll jump into this week's giveaway. and to be entered in this week's giveaway that is brought to you by Team Underdog Cutbait. And what you have to do to be entered in to win some Team Underdog Cutbait is answer what size and what species of fish you want to put on your wall next. Now, this could also be a fish that you already have on your wall, or one that you really hope to catch one day and would love to see it mounted on your wall for you to remember forever. So that's the qualification to enter into this week's weekly giveaway, brought to you by Team Underdog Sport Fishing. Mike and his team kicking out the killer cut bait. Love that stuff. And we also love his support for the show. Mike, thank you once again. Well, we've gone and run out of time yet again on another week. I'd like to thank you very much for tuning into this week's episode of the Love of Fishing podcast, presented by Peter's Tackle. Guys, have yourselves a great week ahead. We'll be back again next week with more. But until then, get outside and go fishing. Peace.
Cause ever since I left you, I've been sipping whiskey with no chaser to replace you. Cause I've been thinking about